I'm done playing matchmaking, I'm done playing Premier until they fix the cheater problem.
The number one ranked Faceit player, Emiya, have been banned for cheating. This is his second time getting banned.
The cheating problem in CS2 is getting out of hand. The Premier is pretty much unplayable, but what made me worried was that the number one player in Europe got banned for cheating on Faceit. That led me to think in tournaments where there are millions of dollars at stake, could even pros be cheating? As Richard Lewis, an investigative journalist in esports scene, once said, only thing that is more naive than assuming that everyone cheats is thinking no one does. Today we are going to ask that uncomfortable question. Could I cheat if I wanted? If so, how would I do it, and how could I bypass all the security measures imposed by tournament organizers to never get caught? To give you a better understanding of today's security, I'm going to walk you through a hypothetical. Let's imagine that you are a pro player. Arriving at a high-tier tournament, straight away you're met with multiple measures that should discourage cheating. Upon arrival to the event, you are required to do your SSD setup. You are put in front of fresh new PC with only necessary software for you to play. Steam, TeamSpeak, anti-cheat game, drivers and configs. Drivers and configs are sent to the tournament organizer days before the actual event starts, as they need to verify them and make sure nothing malicious is inside, and they pre-download it on your own SSD drive. During this whole setup, you have no access to the internet. The only piece of software that is whitelisted is Steam, so you can connect to your account and anti-cheat, which is usually provided by Faceit. Launching any other executable file requires a password only admins know, and they have to type it in for you. Furthermore, during this setup, an admin is always present behind you, and he makes sure there are no technical issues during the setup. However, this person is distractible. I noticed many times that I could have done something malicious while he was helping one of my teammates on the other side of the booth. Human factor is always going to be a questionable resource in order to catch illegal activity, so it is rather unreliable. On match day, you usually come to the venue around an hour before your game in order to set up your gear and warm up. During this time, you're again with no internet connection, and you load your SSD that you configured as we discussed earlier. As soon as you plug your mouse, keyboard and headset, you are required to log into Steam, for which you need your phone to pass the Steam Guard security. Right after that, your phone is being taken away from you, locked in the box until the end of the match, as well as any electronics such as smartwatch you have on you. Again, while you warm up, the admin is present behind you all the time for similar reasons we mentioned, to assist you with technical difficulties and to oversee you do not attempt to do anything fishy like putting a USB drive in, etc. Let's move further in our match day to the actual game. Before every game, we have to leave the booth area for a quick team talk or toilet. Whenever we do so, we have to undergo a security scan where they search us for any external electronic devices we might have either in our pocket or attached to our bodies. This procedure is fairly new and only happens at elite tournaments such as Majors by ESL or Blast or PGL. As soon as we sit down, our TeamSpeak recording is started and is stored by the tournament organizer for future investigation if needed. No one can ever enter our booth, not even a manager or camera crew, without being scanned, and if we leave our place between the maps, we have to be also scanned again. Let me mention one fact. While we are checked and scanned multiple times on a match day, our gear like mouse or keyboard throughout the whole tournament never gets checked, at least to my knowledge. This is how the procedures look for us. They're simple and easy to follow, so you stay out of trouble. However, what if we try to come up with ways to avoid some of these measures or to discredit them completely? Let me lay out a handful of possible ways in the order of difficulty to pull off. First one being having an inside man in the audience. So while playing on stage, we have complete freedom to look at the surroundings, the audience being one of them. One way to use that to gain an advantage is having a person show us signals to communicate beneficial information. For example, they could raise a sign, the content of the sign wouldn't even need to be, something related. It doesn't matter, the signal could just be raising a sign. That could imply some information that was agreed upon beforehand. For example, the majority of the opposing team is heading towards B. If we would have a variety of signals spread across multiple agents, it would be practically impossible to discover. Even with measure like TeamSpeak recording, you can't ever catch someone abusing this information gained from the audience. Spontaneous and intuitive calls are happening every single match, multiple times. They are based on intel gathered through coaching staff, analysis, and anti-strat preparations, and sometimes even luck. So that means that unless a player gets caught red-handed by accidentally mentioning the actual sign in audience, there is not much we can do. While this way of cheating sounds nice in theory, it is definitely possible that it becomes counterproductive and you lose more than you gain. Sometimes only one signal is not enough to make a good decision, and making a bad one would be fatal very fast. So in theory, it could give you a round or two per match if used cleverly, and of course these 2 rounds could decide the whole game. Overall, this type of cheating was never explored because it never had to be. There is no real sport that has fog of war like a lot of esports games, and thus the crowd leaking information never had to be considered before. I really wonder how this is going to evolve as esports is going to mature. This ties into a cheat that many pros have actually used, and that is hearing casters or audience. That is one instance where you could involuntarily gain a random piece of information about the opponent, and it is up to you how you use that information. Before you suggest to be fair play and ignore this information, let me tell you that it is not possible to not react in some way. It might not be obvious as starting the rotation or shooting enemies through the wall, but it may trigger you to save nades a little bit longer or give heads up to your teammates what might be coming. Another minor way you can get advantage at LAN tournaments are through nade usage. If you ever play in an environment where you face your opponents directly in front of you, you can throw flashes to make their monitor bright white, lighting up their face, and you will understand they're in that part of the map. Recently, the best tournaments started to battle this by adding a visual obstacle between the teams during the round, or making sure they never see each other face to face and rather sit in booth side by side. Lastly, we can talk about reflections. Sometimes you will play at the venue where you will, by accident, see the game screen or projector through a random reflection somewhere in the arena or stadium. It actually happened to me years ago, and I noticed it after one round, after which I notified the admin team to block the reflection so I don't gain unfair advantage. It even happened to Simple, and here is the clip where they had to pause the game and fix the problem.
This is a strange one. So, I'm going to say what's happening here. Simple believes he has an unfair advantage right now. He can see the radar somehow off the glass, the reflection, and he doesn't want to play like that.
Oh.
That's very sportsmanlike of him to even let them know, and they're going to fix that issue now, and we're going to work out why that's happening. And he wants to make sure if he has this victory, he wants to be proud of it. He doesn't want to feel like he cheated in any sort of sense. So the reflective glass, maybe one of the lights is bouncing off.
While this is definitely rare, there is possibility where some dirty players would not report this and keep playing while cheating. But let's move on from these minor ways of cheating in Pro CS onto another spicy one. Let me recall a chess drama topic from 2022. A huge upset happened where a lesser-known chess player beat the world's best, Magnus Carlsen, using some suspicious moves. A meme started popping up that it would be quite easy to cheat if one would have a radio vibrating device on their body, receiving hints on what moves they should play. This could definitely be used in Pro CS as well. It wouldn't even have to be on the body, as that is checked regularly on the biggest events nowadays. Each player has to use a keyboard, and it is the keyboard that we would use for this cheat. Most keyboards players use have a significant amount of empty space in their plastic shell that could be used to implant a modification granting this exact function. We could plant a small vibrating motor right below WASD, so it would always be felt while still being weak enough not to detect anywhere else. Even if people were suspicious and would force us to open up our keyboard, they would have to have enough technical knowledge to tell that it has been modified. This method could give us significantly more information in both frequency and density, as we would always be receiving data without needing to look into the crowd like before. While in this video specifically we talk about the most prestigious events in the world, there are also great amounts of lesser known tournaments in lower divisions of Counter-Strike, especially the regional lands where you still fight for fat prize money and where cheating is more probable due to risk and reward being more lucrative. On the majority of these tournaments, players aren't scanned at all, and sometimes their phones aren't even taken. So you can let your imagination run wild with that one. But all of these ways of cheating pale in comparison to having real cheats injected into the game on a tournament. Is that even possible? It is very hard to say. Main reason is that we don't know what measures are taken on the software side on every PC in each tournament. Theoretically, if we would be able to find an inside man that would share this valuable information for a high enough price, we could find a vulnerability to circumvent their measures and still cheat. But that is too complicated. Fact is, we don't know if we're able to launch an executable file. We don't know if the PC is going to read a USB flash drive for us to transfer data. We also don't know if the PC is not logging every single action. It all depends on what our technical skill set would be as a potential cheater. If we would be able to distract the admin to look the other way for 20 minutes, while having physical access to the PC, practically anything is possible, but this is very hard and I'd say improbable way of what kind of cheating could be happening on the highest level of CS. The risk is too high as you cannot predict the precautions the organizer is taking. But again, have to mention the smaller tournaments. To be frank, on some tournaments it is painfully obvious that no precautions are taken. You are left with a PC alone for hours and it seems like admins don't really worry about it. I've seen this happen on tournaments that have prize pools of $50,000 and above. In this case, I worry even cheating like this is possible. I am not sure I want to open the topic of cheating in online CS, as it is another can of worms and honestly issue in itself. Most of the precautions are impossible to take, and only valid way to detect the cheater is through an anti-cheat, which we said in the beginning of the video while talking about Wonderful is just not perfect. The reality is there are always going to be undetectable cheats out there. It is a never-ending cat and mouse game between cheat and anti-cheat developers. The incentive to cheat on online games is huge, as anyone can sign up to an online tournament. Players that know they are never going to be pros can just cheat once or even just match fix to make quick buck and disappear forever. I don't want this video to be viewed as encouraging to cheaters. The goal is to create a valuable discussion. In the ideal scenario, I want to hear that none of the cheating methods that I have presented are actually possible by actual people from the industry. I'm curious what you think could be done to improve and ensure integrity is not breached in a game we love to watch and play. I looked up how they deal with this in other esports titles such as League of Legends or Valorant, and I found LCS rulebook with an interesting idea. They suggest to let players their gear, keyboard, mousepad and mouse only, and they require to send them in advance for approval tests. This is just one way of many that we can improve things moving forward, as I'm not sure that the way things are right now are optimal. Best case scenario is that they actually are optimal and no cheater can ever plague a top tier Counter-Strike event. Worst case scenario is that the events already suffer from dishonest players looking for an edge with external factors. I remain to be hopeful and maybe naive that the former is the case. If you like the video, feel free to hit that thumbs up button or consider subscribe, that would mean a lot to me, and I will see you in the next video. Bye bye.